At this stage of life, a lot of us are talking about where are my best friends? I feel a little bit lonely. Is there something more for me? What if you focused on being your own BFF? We'll discuss that today.
We're girlfriends of a certain age. In midlife, we got a lot to say. So let's get loud. We won't fade away. Cause we're girlfriends of a certain age.
Hey, welcome back to Girlfriends of a Certain Age. I'm Fleshay.
I'm Jessica.
We're so glad that you're here. Today, we're deep diving on this idea of being our own best friend. Now, we are very lucky because we get to come together every week and do this together. So we've got that girlfriend juice, we get that every week, and I love it so much. And there's something about being your own best friend, taking care of yourself, your own needs, and looking at how that could shift your other relationships. It's been incredible.
Absolutely. I don't know if it's because we're slowing down or being more hormonal and introspective, but I am learning to really enjoy my own company like I
Mm.
never did before. I really like hanging out with just me
Yes.
to the point where once in a while I'm like, maybe you need to be a little more social.
Need to push yourself. I know. So if you are feeling this pull to love yourself more, I think we hear this so much, this idea of self-love. And it could be something like a warm bath at the end of the day or taking a walk by yourself. But I think that there's so much that we could be doing as a
Hmm.
lifestyle
Hmm.
and really be focusing on that for ourselves and even teaching the people around us. This is something I think about a lot. And so we wrote down a few notes for how we do this for ourselves. So take what works and leave the rest.
Yeah.
I would love to hear one of yours, Jessica.
Well, it's funny. This conversation is making me think about this last weekend. I thought I was going to have a solo weekend. All my boys were supposed to go on this trip, but my little one decided to stay home, which worked out to be great. I got to have some great quality time with him. Love you to death. We even went out on a date night
Oh,
together.
how sweet.
But you know what I was going to do if they were all gone? Take myself out on a date.
Oh, yeah. I do that all the time.
Yeah. So that's my first recommendation, to just really hang out with yourself in a way that feels really fun. And like you're saying, yes, like, things in your house like baths and whatever are great. But what about going out on the town? Like, go to the dinner place you want, order exactly what you want, go see that movie you want, go eat that dessert you want. So I
Or
was
take
like,
yourself on a little getaway.
yes, right. I mean, yeah, it doesn't have to be a one night stop. Go for it.
It doesn't have to just be a one night stand.
Yeah, right. It could be a whole weekend. It could be a whole life.
So what would you have like a first step that you would recommend a girlfriend do for herself to be her own best friend?
Well, I know that when I think about it, one of the big things, and maybe this is because I am a voice coach, communication coach, is I think about what we're saying to ourselves. And you
Yes.
know that wonderful expression, like say to yourself what you would say to others. Treat
Mm.
yourself like you would your external best friends.
Mm.
And I think that oftentimes we can get much more harsh on ourselves. So I think the first step, or one of the first steps, is to really be aware of how you talk to yourself
Mm. Oh, I like that.
throughout your day,
Yeah.
especially if you're doing something that maybe feels like there's some judgment. How do we love ourselves when we make a mistake? What do we tell ourselves in our lower moments? It's great to love ourselves when we're like feeling great. What do we do when we're not feeling so great? How do we show up for ourselves? So yeah, what is that conversation we're having?
I
Mm-hmm.
like that a lot. The first thing that I would recommend girlfriends do is clean house. I
Ooh.
would go and look, what are the unpleasant situations and or people in my life? So the first
Mm.
thing I would do is write all that out and be like,
Ooh.
because that's probably the first thing I personally need to do. And I'm a former therapist, so I think about this kind of stuff a lot. But first thing I
Mm.
want to do is, who are the people who drain me? What are the situations that drain me? What are the things that take more than they give? And so the first thing I'd want to
Mm.
do is get really clear about that and then make some plans to stop feeding those situations, whether that's making boundaries, whether that's just full on ghosting somebody,
Hmm.
because sometimes that is what has to happen to just take one's power back.
Wow.
Because I think that is a big piece of clutter in our lives. And we would be using for ourselves.
Yeah. You know, what's so funny is when you said cleaning house, I immediately thought you meant literally cleaning your house, which did not
Oh,
bring me a lot of excitement or joy to have
no.
to do. But cleaning up your mental, emotional relationship house is huge.
Yeah, too many of us think we are beholden because you live next door to me, or we're related, or we work together, or I made you, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, that we are stuck with each other. And maybe on some
Mm.
level we are, but we don't have to feed those situations. We don't have to keep feeding them with negativity, which is ends up also being a delicious thing for the brain to noodle on, to
Hmm.
focus on, feeding that negativity.
Yeah.
What I will say next time you get nasty with me. No, that's completely depleting our energy.
Well, it's interesting because we did an episode on friendship in midlife and how to make friends other than yourself. And one of the things we talk about is asking how we feel after we hang out with somebody or how we feel
Yes,
in anticipation of being with somebody.
absolutely.
Are we feeling energized? Are we feeling depleted? Do we feel like we've been, supported or somehow criticized? So I think that that's a really great thing. So when you're writing this out, do you like have a formula? Like, do you go through it by kind of like name by name or time that you're spending? Like, I'm just curious if
Mm.
when you break that down, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, well, I'm probably going to make a worksheet out of it, so I'll
Yes,
share that
please.
with girlfriends when I have
Yes,
that ready,
please.
because I think there is actually a formula to it. So the first thing that I do, honestly,
Mm,
is a brain dump, and I'll just get a cheap dollar store notebook, but I'll just write all the problem people down,
wow.
because the list is inevitably longer than I am aware of. I might be
Mm,
thinking about one or two, trouble hotspots in my life,
mm,
right? A situation or a person that I'm avoiding or not wanting to deal with, or just
mm.
completely drained by. And I start writing, and I'll go back 12 years. I've gone back 17 years. There were things in my childhood that I wrote down. I realized I was still holding on to that.
Wow.
And most of us are not trained how to heal
No.
from unpleasant situations. So we just compartmentalize them. We park them in a closet.
Hmm.
So I think that's the other thing. Once you pull on that string, we'll find a lot more than we were expecting. Then what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll circle. Well, what are the ones that like are in my life right now or need
Hmm.
to be dealt with right now? And I'll just
Mm.
circle, maybe three, four, seven,
Mm.
whatever it is. And then, well, what is it? What is it about them? Because
Mhm.
it's one thing to say something or someone is problematic,
Mhm.
but why?
Mhm. And
Right?
what is it that's triggering you?
What is it that's triggering me? And right, that's always a me problem, right?
Mhm.
If you
Mhm.
say something and I get offended, well, okay, maybe it wasn't very nice of you, but there's a wound in me that I have not taken care of. So really that's my problem. That's my
Mhm.
responsibility. I'm going to take that to therapy, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to process that with my therapist. I'm
Yeah.
going to do my work. I'm going to stop blaming you for
Mhm.
putting your salty finger in my
Mhm.
own wound. So
Mhm.
that's me taking responsibility for myself. So then I'll often bring that list to my therapist, or I'll have
Mhm.
talk with over with a friend or somebody who's involved in the situation who maybe can give me some perspective. Somebody
Mhm.
that I trust, not
Yes.
someone who's going to turn on me later and use that
No.
information against me later. But sometimes even just that process, writing all that down, is
Mhm.
enough for me to say, oh, for some reason right now, I am hungry for negativity, because
Mm.
I could be fixing these situations, or I can
Mhm.
just keep stewing about it.
Another thing that I like doing, and I think I did this in one of the many workbooks that I enjoy too, is writing down who your fans are, writing
Oh,
down who
yeah.
your support is.
Yes.
Because if we recognize really who is there for me, who really can show up for me, who do I just feel my most myself around, then I think our energy, we know who to invest in. So
Exactly.
that's a nice kind of counter to that list, but I think both probably live on the same list, right? Well, and bringing it back to ourselves, I think even doing this is a beautiful opportunity to be your own best friend because you are you are being your ally. You are being
Yes.
your own advocate.
Yeah.
You are actually giving yourself some sort of control in how you relate with people. And to your point, even if there's people in our lives who we have to interact with, it's a non-negotiable. Um, how do we internally get triggered?
Exactly.
What do we know is going on for ourselves? So I love that. That's a really beautiful way to be because that's also something I have to own. sometimes for me, being my own best friend, it's less complicated when I'm just by myself.
Right.
It's more complicated among
Around other
others,
people.
but let's be real, a lot of life is around others.
Exactly.
And so that is like upping the ante, but in a really interesting way. How do
Right.
I stay true to myself? How do I not get thrown off by, people that trigger me? It's a great, great exercise.
Right. And I think also, like, what does it mean to me? What does it mean to you to have a best friend? What is a best friend? A best friend is someone who protects us. A best friend is someone who believes in us. A
Yeah.
best friend is someone who wants to see us have, be, and do everything that we want.
Yes.
And that is not something that most girlfriends are really focused on for themselves. That's what I've noticed.
Well, I think we also have externalized it. I think that from a very early age, girlfriends in general have really strong bonds, right? Do you remember dressing like your girlfriend or, planning things out,
Getting their
getting
advice.
their advice, having crushes on the same boys? I mean, there was a lot of funny things that we did. And I also think there's a mythology around this external best friend, right? That they should be there for us every moment, that they should read our minds. And I think what we're realizing as we get older is ain't nobody got time for that. And even my dearest friends, we know that we've got so much going on in our lives. We're lucky if we can get together occasionally. We pick up where we left off, but it's like all the more reason why being our own really best friend is going to be so key,
Yeah.
right?
And it actually feels really good.
It
It feels
does.
really good to
I
enjoy
know.
your own company, to know that you have your own back.
Yeah,
There's nothing like it.
there's nothing like it. And as a recovering good girl who used to worry so much about pleasing others, also really needing to be seen in a way,
Mm.
I love nothing more sometimes than being by myself. Another really random specific thing I wanted to bring up is I really love making myself beautiful lunches.
Mm.
Like I want to do food porn. I want to take photos of them. I don't need to share them online, but there's something about making a meal that is colorful and gorgeous. And we're coming off summer, so heirloom tomatoes are all around me right now. I get this little rush of joy when I make myself something like that and then sit down and eat it all by myself.
Oh, I'm the same way. But you and I also work from home, so it's easier for us to do that.
Hmm.
To have access to our kitchens and all these things.
Yeah.
But I love that too.
Yeah.
I do photograph mine. My phone is filled
Is it?
with my food porn.
Okay,
Yes.
maybe I don't feel so weird because I have a couple on there and I was feeling a little weird about having them on my phone. I'm going to keep taking photos of my food. Thank
Oh,
you. The other big takeaway that as we were preparing for this episode that I wanted to bring up is just really making myself a priority
mm,
in my own life.
yes, please.
That reinforces self-love. And when I can't get to myself, and sometimes we just can't, but when there's that moment that I feel like I sort of chose not to show up for myself, I let myself down a little bit. And I'm just
Mm,
really trying to do that less and less, And it's interesting because sometimes there's a resistance to doing the thing that actually is showing up for us, right?
right.
For example, I'm going to a wedding in a couple weeks and I'm very excited about it. I'm also nervous. They want it to be semi-formal and they want us to wear cocktail dresses.
Oh.
I don't have one of these.
Oh. Oh.
And I have been putting this off and, trying to go about it in my own way. Nothing's been working out. And I was like, oh, you got to go just to one of these department stores and just do it. And I finally worked my nerve up and I did it. Okay, the joke is I found two adorable sundresses. I didn't find a cocktail dress. I'm
Okay.
still on the lookout
You're
for
still
that.
on that.
But I felt so glad because there was something about that caused anxiety. But the more I put it off, the more I was like, you're kind of letting down yourself because you want to show up and look good. We're flying out of state for this. It's a big deal. And there was just a way that I wasn't following through for myself.
Mm,
And when I finally did, and I was out there in that department store, I felt so good. How do we show up for ourselves and almost hold ourselves accountable to be that best friend for ourselves?
right.
It's not always easy, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, and when I hear you say it, I would encourage you to journal. Like, why are you stuck? What's the stuck part?
Freaking cocktail dress. I don't
Just
know.
like how you would show up in it? Or finding it, or the expense of it, or like that's not you.
Right. I'll
Yeah.
journal. I'll journal more about
Yeah.
it. But I think all
Because I
those
feel like there's
things.
something that's a sticking point for
Hmm.
you. And I get it. I have plenty of those in my life too.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So that was the other thing. Just like how do we show up for ourselves, even for the things that, take a little getting over the hump.
Absolutely. Well, that ties in with my next one really nicely because when we do get stuck or things
Hmm.
aren't going that well, how do we forgive ourselves?
Yeah.
Right? Like we want our best friend to forgive us. We want, if I step on your toe or I say something inappropriate or weird, and you have to bring it up to me, I do want you to forgive me at some point,
Yeah.
but I have to be willing to give that to myself. I have Maya Angelou who says, when we know
Mm.
better, we do better.
Yeah.
And I really believe that. So, like as one of your besties, I want you to forgive yourself for the putting off
Hmm.
of the dress and
Oh,
like,
definitely.
like work through it, and I'll do everything I can to help you through it too.
I still got to find it. So,
Well, as I think about that, it makes me think of our fashion episode.
yeah.
And if you haven't seen it yet, the link is down below.
So much fun.
But, you could just take your own advice and do Rent the Runway, go to Macy's or
Hmm.
Nordstrom. Just tell them this is how much money I want to spend.
Yep.
I would love to find something. The invitation says this.
Yes.
Show me what you got.
Show me what you got. Show me
Yeah.
where to start.
Where
Yes.
to start. And so I want to help love you through that for sure. But I think also like, that lends itself to this beautiful self-forgiveness. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I did the best I could. I'm
Yeah.
doing the best I can.
Yeah.
And I think we don't we don't remind ourselves enough of that.
No.
We can be so hard on ourselves.
So hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
Absolutely so hard on ourselves. I think compassion and self-compassion is such a key part to really being your own best friend. We don't want to just continually correct ourselves. We need to just love ourselves, be aware of what we're doing. That's why I also love journaling,
Mm,
to kind of understand
it's
what's
so
going on. It's
powerful.
so powerful. Also, sometimes if you're not a journaler, voice memos, talking to yourself,
Oh
it's a
yeah.
really fun exercise too. I do that
Absolutely.
once in a while. But all those things just to explore this, because this happens for everybody. This
It's
happens for everybody.
It does. And you and I, we're only sharing a handful here. We're going to keep the conversation going. So
Yeah.
find the link down below
Yeah.
and come join us in our private community. It's free to join. We would love to see you there. So please like, share, comment down below. We are so excited to be on this journey with you. Thank you for joining us today, girlfriends. Bye.
Bye.